We've spent 2 days talking about the pre-Socratics, and I hope by now you have a pretty good grasp of what they're up to. Usually treated as pre-scientific cosmological speculation, but at the same time, running through all that, and in some regards underlying it all, is their attempt to understand this so noteworthy, remarkable parallel between the ordered unity of nature and the ordered unity of a city-state, and the ordered unity of one's moral life, as it should be, at least. And accordingly, what you might call the metaphysical grounding of morals. Now, thinking in terms of an ethics that is grounded in the very nature of reality. Metaphysical grounding of morals. Now, when we come, as we do now, to the Sophists, we find that, not all of them, but by and large, the Sophists are in reaction against what's been going on before. They don't like it. And in fact, if you add to the 2 things about the pre-Socratics that we've been stressing, if you add the 3rd thing that we noted in passing, namely their attempts to understand or the beginning development of some God concept, okay, they're skeptical about that as well. So, in effect, what you find in the Sophists is, first of all, skepticism about the possibility of knowing the truth about reality, about nature. And the term nature, as far as the Greeks are concerned, is simply what is. Skepticism about knowing the truth about reality. It's as if, rather than getting into the disputes between the various groups of pre-Socratics, monists and pluralists and all the rest of it, they're saying, in effect, a plague on all your camps and on your whole enterprise. They just don't want it. They give up on it. And the sorts of complaints that they have are that, for instance, we're faced constantly with the incompatibility of different positions. Or what is sometimes called, especially in more recent years, the incommensurability of certain positions. You simply cannot translate one into the language of another. They simply don't match. They don't jive. Poles apart. But in addition, the equipollence of arguments. Equipollence simply means that the arguments for have no more weight than the arguments against. So the arguments for one position are cancelled out, and the arguments for another position are against the first position, as you know. And these features, which surface in some of the Sophists, are characteristic of skepticism in subsequent history. There are certain kinds of arguments for the position that you cannot know truth. The argument from equipollence of arguments is a characteristic one. The emphasis on incommensurability of alternatives again. And of course the incompatibility, contradictoriness, that's involved in all the range of different views. So if the Sophists dislike and reject what the pre-Socratics are doing in their pre-scientific cosmology, what do they do instead of trying to get at the truth? What they do is to turn from the pursuit of knowledge to the practice of rhetoric, the attempt to persuade by non-logical means. You see. And so, if you like, the Sophists seem to be devoted to rhetoric rather than philosophy. Rhetoric rather than any science. Keep in mind that the word science, way until about 1800, means simply knowledge of a theoretical sort. So, skeptical then about the cosmology. Moreover, their interest is in practical affairs rather than theoretical matters. In practical affairs where you would expect, at least following the line of pre-Socratic thought, where you would expect ethical concern to surface. Concern about the good life, well ordered, with a morality grounded in the nature of things. But not so the Sophists. They rather view morality as conventional, simply a matter of social agreement, social practice, perhaps what we would call social contract, and therefore quite relativistic. They are more oriented to achieving success, winning a debate, winning an argument, rather than the pursuit of truth and justice. At least that's the picture that we get of them, from some of their fragments and from Plato, Socrates. In other words, we see continued in the Sophists the attitude of Democritus with his materialism. Except that the Sophists don't have a materialistic metaphysic, they don't have a metaphysic. Democritus, you remember, rejected the notion that morality is grounded in the nature of reality, ordered in some way, by some rational principle. No, for Democritus, it's a matter of chance the way things come out. So, use what you know to enjoy yourself, but avoid the painful excesses. Well, some of the Sophists are hedonistic like that, yes, but in any case, they're rejecting any notion of natural moral law that is beginning to appear in the pre-Socratics. Rejecting any notion of natural moral law, a morality grounded in the nature of things. And instead are opposing to it the alternative of ethical relativism. A pretty thoroughgoing ethical relativism. If you're interested in pursuing that sort of issue in larger detail, the recent writings of the philosopher Alasdair MacIntyre are well worth your attention. Alasdair MacIntyre, now at Notre Dame, has written a series of 3 volumes that I'll refer to later on, concerning the history of ethics in this sort of regard, trying to turn our attention from an ethic of rules, where there is so much incommensurability between different approaches he thinks he can never get anywhere, turning our attention not to relativism, because he rejects that alternative as well, but turning attention rather to an ethic that lays emphasis on the virtues, a kind of tradition that's rooted in Plato and Aristotle. His latest book in this regard is called 3 Rival Versions of Moral Inquiry. 3 Rival Versions, Moral Inquiry, One of these versions is the sort of 18th century Enlightenment ethic, which regarded ethics as a science growing cumulatively till we all reach perfect agreement about the good, the right, and everything else. The other is an ethic represented by people like Nietzsche, completely relativistic, therefore reverting to the pursuit of power rather than justice. Interesting echoes of some of the Sophists. And the third is an ethic of virtue that goes back to the Plato-Aristotle tradition. And he finds worked out much more fully in Thomas Aquinas. So it's a very interesting sort of thing, and this is where the cutting edge in present-day debate about ethical theory is. Interesting how it reaches right back into antiquity in many ways. In other words, according to McIntyre, to understand the scene in the 1990s, well, 1980s, because he wrote it in the 90s, even in the 80s, even though it's now the 90s. To understand the ethical scene in the 90s, you have to go way, way back to ancient Greece. You see. The story of how we got to where we are. Well, in addition, as I indicated, the Sophists are skeptical about knowing anything about God, if there be a God or gods. Now, take a look at some of the selections that we had from the Sophists, and you'll get this point. Look on page 53 in Kaufman, page 53, where you have some brief selections from Protagoras. And the first one is much quoted to this day. I'm sure you've heard it. Essentially, man is the measure of all things. Okay. You notice it in the first paragraph there, at the bottom of 53. Of all things, the measure is man. Of things that are, that they are. Of things that are not, that they are not. Okay. Who says what is? The individual, seemingly, is the judge. It is we who make our truth. Truth seems to be a matter of the making rather than the discovery. An interesting anticipation of the sort of thing that's sometimes said about the situation today. Any of you tried to read Alan Bloom's bestseller book of a couple of years ago, The Closing of the American Mind? You may recall that he complains that the contemporary university student talks as if there is no such thing as truth or falsity. As if there is no such thing as truth or falsity, right or wrong. No. We make up our own values. You see? What's true for me may not be true for someone else. A man is the measure of all things, in that sense. So Protagoras' dictum there is often taken as the epitome of relativism. And when you look on the next page, 54, paragraph number 4, about the gods, I'm not able to know whether they exist or do not exist, nor what they're like. The factors preventing knowledge of many, the obscurity of the subject and the shortness of human life. Well, maybe we agree about the obscurity of the subject and the shortness of human life. But notice that he has an overarching pessimism about the possibility of knowledge. And interesting again, 6b, that little dictum, to make the weaker cause the stronger. I don't know what he had in mind there. But to make the weaker cause the stronger sounds like something rather unnatural, you see, as if there's an inversion of any kind of order to things. Well, Protagoras. The next selections are from Gorgias, and here the skepticism is very blatant. This selection is taken, by the way, from Sextus Empiricus, his Outlines of Pyrrhonism, I believe it is. Sextus Empiricus was a Roman writer who tried to do sort of a digest, an outline digest of skepticism historically. Okay? So Gorgias appears. And notice the three main points of the outline at the beginning. 1, nothing exists. 2, if anything exists, it is incomprehensible, can't be known. 3, if it is comprehensible, if you can know it, it is incommunicable, you can't talk about it. Now, it'd be hard to find more complete skepticism than that. Nothing exists. Well, you say you don't know for sure. All right, well, if anything exists, I can't know what it is. Well, maybe I don't know that for sure. But even if I could know, I couldn't tell you, or anybody else, I couldn't talk about it. You see, notice the qualifier. Well, I don't know for sure, but even if I did, because a complete skeptic is one who cannot make an affirmation. Nothing exists. Because if he knows that, he's not a complete skeptic. A complete skeptic cannot say, I can know nothing. If he can know that, he's not a complete skeptic. A complete skeptic can only say, well, as far as I know, I can know nothing. As far as I know, nothing exists. Well, if anything does, then... And so here you have it in dear old Gorgias. Notice how he develops this under Roman 2 at the bottom of the first column on 55. If the concepts of the mind are not realities, that is to say, what we're thinking about is not real, reality cannot be thought. Reality cannot be thought. We can't think about it. Reality cannot be thought. So the question is whether there is any correspondence between thought and reality. Presumably he's thinking that truth would be some sort of correspondence between thought and reality. But if there's no correspondence, then apparently we're not able to think about reality. Or look at Romans 3, where he's talking about the problem of communicating. 6 lines into that paragraph. That with which we communicate is speech. Speech is not the same thing as things that exist. So that we communicate, not the things that exist, but only speech. And at the bottom of that column, speech can never exactly represent perceptibles. Perceptibles are obviously what we perceive. Speech can never exactly represent what we perceive, since it's different from them. And perceptibles are apprehended each by one kind of sense organ, speech uses another. You see? Hence, since the objects of sight cannot be presented to any other organ but sight, different sense organs cannot give their information to one another. Similarly, speech cannot give any information about perceptibles. So if anything exists and is comprehended, it cannot be communicated. Conclusion. But in the further material there, notice what further is ascribed to Gorgias. Look at that Inconium on Helen. Paragraph 1. What kinds of virtues are these he's talking about? The glory of a city is courage, of a body, beauty, of a soul, wisdom, of action, virtue, of speech, truth. It's right in all circumstances to praise what's praiseworthy and blame what's blameworthy. Now notice that mix of virtues. You see, to talk of courage and beauty, why, that's those old heroic virtues. You see? Heroic virtues. What he means by wisdom isn't made clear. The term can be translated prudence, and prudence could simply be looking out for yourself because of the consequences. So it seems to be that what Gorgias is talking about here is those virtues of the heroic sort, which surfaced in some of the early Greeks and were critiqued by people like Hesiod, some of the others, who are much more concerned about justice, about courage, good looks, and so forth. Well, as you read on, look at paragraph 8 there on the same page. Speech is a great power, but achieves the most divine works by means of the smallest and least visible form. It can put a stop to fear, remove grief, create joy, increase pity. The power of rhetoric. Oh, sure, you know what it is to be turned on by some address, some speaker, you see. You probably don't remember the original I Have a Dream speech of Martin Luther King. I remember sitting by the television, listening to that, watching that, and feeling like standing up and cheering. Rhetoric can do wonderful things. Well, look at paragraph 12 on the opposite page. Persuasion by speech is equivalent to abduction by force. Oh! I didn't have any choice. You see? And in 13, persuasion, when added to speech, can also make any impression it wishes on the soul. Manipulative. And 14, the power of speech over the constitution of the soul can be compared with the effect of drugs on the bodily state. Put you to sleep. Okay. So what Gorgias sees is the tremendous potential for good or evil, however you define that, in rhetoric. And then on, let's see, no, I guess that's enough of Gorgias. One of the other sophists that we don't have a selection from, but who certainly appears as one of the characters in some of Plato's dialogues, particularly in Plato's Republic, was Thrasymachus. And there's some reference to him in Stumpf, in his account of the Sophists. But to Thrasymachus is ascribed the saying that justice is the interest of the stronger. Justice is the interest of the stronger. Or if you like, might makes right. That it's those who exercise power who tell you what's right. Which is precisely the thesis that Friedrich Nietzsche elaborated around 1900 in his work on the genealogy of morals. Yes, indeed. So Thrasymachus then comes out as, if you like, the ethical relativist. But the ethical relativist who sees that the power behind moral persuasion is the power of rhetoric. Now, what is it about rhetoric that's so significant? That it appeals to the emotions rather than the reason. And incidentally, to make the point, did you notice how I leaned forward and with good rhetorical style said, it appeals to the emotions. I capture your emotions, your feelings, insane. It's not that rhetoric per se is bad. That it's wrong to appeal to the emotions. But it's wrong so to manipulate the emotion that reason is turned off, bypassed, put to sleep, drugged. That's the difference. Now, this poses a fascinating kind of contrast that we're going to be working with as we move into Socrates and Plato. The contrast between the use of careful thinking, reflective argument, philosophical inquiry, as against the use of rhetoric. Now, how are you going to try and affect people's viewpoints? Which way? Rhetorical manipulation of the emotions? Only? Or, basically, good thinking, which becomes convincing. Well, this is the picture of the Sophists. It's sometimes said that that's not the entire picture. And indeed, you have a selection from Antiphon, from the same period, who, as our editor's notes indicate, may or may not have been a Sophist. There's some dispute there. And Antiphon seems to be, in this sort of conflict, one of the good guys rather than one of the bad guys. Look on page 59, where Antiphon says, justice is not to transgress the law of the city in which one's a citizen. A man can best conduct himself in harmony with justice if, when in the company of witnesses, he upholds the laws, and when, without witnesses, he upholds the edicts of nature. Now, notice that, the edicts of nature. The edicts of laws are artificially imposed. Those of nature are compulsory. Where's the higher authority? The edicts of the laws are arrived at by consent, not by natural growth, whereas those of nature are not a matter of consent. If you disagree